indeed honored to be introducing such a great personality, Padma Shri Dr. Alka Kriplani. To introduce Dr. Alka Kriplani is like Suraj ko Deepak dikhana. I'm really mesmerized to see her CV, and actually, this is the tip of the iceberg. She's much more than that. So she has been president of Foxy, president of GESI, president of DGES, president of AOGD. She's editor Asian Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology Practice 1999 to 2017. She has been vice president Foxy and has been national corresponding editor of Journal of Obstetrics and Gynec of India from 2015 to 2017. And she has so many awards, and the top of that is the biggest award, and that is Padma Shri, and the Teachers Award, that is BC Roy National Award. Then she is also recipient of honorary FRCOG, which is also a very big international honor. Then she has received DMA Medical Teachers Award, then the DMA Chikitsa Ratan Award, then IMA Med Achievers Award, Rashtriya Gaurav Award, Medgate Award, Times Healthcare Achievers Award, Woman of the Year Award. And though she has written guest lectures of 827, but I would say many of those she would have not even counted, and it should be more than 8,000, orations 72, live workshops more than 158, scientific publications more than 500, and organized many conferences more than 200. And she has, her main interest, passion is gynecological endoscopy, reproductive endocrinology, and high-risk pregnancy. And in my eyes, she's a very intelligent, active, sincere, and a smart person, and has a very, very good sense of humor. So today she's going to talk on endoscopy in bed obstetric history. Over to you, Alka Madam.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Asha ji. At the outset, I would like to thank Ritu Khanna. What a humble and what a great personality she is. You can't say her no. Ritu ji said you speak on BOH, so it's okay. Whatever you want, I'm all yours. And for the next 20-25 minutes, so let me start with the lecture. And when we talk of endoscopy in bed obstetric history, so colleagues, bed obstetric is all abortions, early, late, intrauterine death, stillbirth, anything. When a lady becomes pregnant and she is not able to have a bundle of joy in her hands, so every outcome is bad obstetric history other than that. Recurrent miscarriages. We are witnessing a sea change in our practice. Good olden days, still RCOG says 3 losses, ASRM says 2 or more losses. Believe me, all these girls are coming so late, and every mishap, even one mishap, puts them into so much of pressure. So abortion is really love labor lost, and one has to seriously start looking into the reasons. According to definition, if there are 2 or more, then you should investigate RCOG 3. But I think RCOG will also change. Nobody has time to wait for 3 mishaps. Now, when we talk of endoscopy in bed obstetric history, of course, we can correct only anatomical factors with the help of endoscopy. And these factors are either congenital or acquired. Amongst congenital, we have whole this list, most common being septate, uterus, which day in and day out we all have to deal. Amongst acquired, fibroids, polyps, Escherman, all these. So all these anatomical problems which lead to either abortions or bad obstetric history can be successfully, many of them can be successfully tackled with the use of endoscopy. This is what septum is a very common problem leading to recurrent miscarriages. I think I have some good videos which I would like to show, otherwise I will exhaust with the time. And data shows that yes, hysteroscopic metroplasty definitely improves. Again, I think to be fair to the speakers behind me, I will be skipping on to few videos and showing you the newer ones. So septum, everybody keeps doing. Bicornuate uterus. ASRM says it's not, there is no evidence, but practicing at All India Institute and getting all referrals from colleagues, even here also, time to time we get these bicornuate uterus cases who have multiple abortions. So unification, we have our own series and publication leads to a good or better outcome. So this is what is a Strassman's metroplasty one should not lightly embark on. I will just discuss few practice points. So this is the laparoscopic view. Always you find a band running from the bladder to the rectum. If you want to do good unification, always dissect this band. Procedures are very simple if you standardize, if you make them simple, like cut the band, check for the rectum, check for the bladder, and dissect the bladder nicely down, because always you will find this going low down up to the cervix. And see how easy it is looking, because somebody is putting two sounds from below. It's a teamwork. I'm injecting some pitresin solution. So principle of surgery is these two horns, where every time alternate, conceptus is going and there is no place for it to grow beyond 4-5 months. So what do? You cut, transverse and suture it vertical. So you make two cavities as one. So after healing, the patient will have, when the conceptus comes, logically it will go to good viability. You may suture in many layers, you may suture differently, but this is a very good way where barb sutures, they really make the procedure very fast, very surgeon friendly. And here I have taken two sutures, so one from anterior, one from posterior, and last at the fundus. And your suturing has to be very, very good, because this is a huge incision. And in next pregnancy, for 9 months, you want a good night's sleep. So wait for the healing for at least 6 to 7 months. And this is what we believe in, nice reperitonization. Number of patients have conceived and delivered, and they are subjected to elective cesarean, because we don't want to take chance for normal delivery where rupture may be a threat. So this is okay. In cases of BOH where there are late abortions or preterms, one can unify uterus to make it one. Nowadays, the colleagues will agree with me. We are witnessing so many patients with different types of fibroids, mostly because late childbearing, and ultrasonography helps in detecting. It's done either hysteroscopically or laparoscopically. All those submucous fibroids. So cases, it is not that they will be infertile. Many will be infertile, but many with these polyps and fibroids, they'll end up in bad obstetric history. I will not go into theories, and this is what the bipolar resectoscope, this is a grade 0, lovely myoma. It sits there and works as an IUCD. You remove the myoma and the patient conceives in the next 2-3 cycles. So this is what it leads to AUB, it leads to infertility, and it can be a reason for BOH. So there are so many important practice points, and you have to be very careful about fluid absorption. That's the reason with bipolar resectoscope, one can use saline, and this is what you should not touch the normal endometrium. Otherwise, you will convert your patient into Asherman's and secondary infertility. So just stay inside the myoma. This is a very easy and a very simple one, because it is grade 0. At the end, one should just detach the pedicle, and this is the way. So if the submucous fibroids, and especially those protruding and distorting the cavity, may be a reason for BOH, and at the end one should always check for the completeness, because there may be another small. This is the work when we started decades back, and this was, we won many awards because we started doing guided myomectomies. And this is what a huge submucosal fibroid, this patient had BOH, and this is what a hybrid technique of removing. So that part of the submucosal, it cut resectoscope, and lower part will be done by open method. And the secret of success is you incise the myoma just up to inside the capsule, and then it comes out on its own. So these are the, and this is the cervical canal. So one can see the fibroids, but nowadays for such fibroids, we have started adopting laparoscopic approach because we are in a, and this is what the hybrid technique, the lower part now will be done with the open technique. So cases of BOH where they have different types of myomas, one has to make a correct, nowadays we have good imaging, and the secret of operating is be inside the capsule of the myoma. So so that you do no harm and the all the myometrium is intact. And this is what the take help of old instruments. So just we have detached the fibroid up to and all the myoma. See how much deep it is into the broad ligament, keeps coming. I'll keep on putting, changing these open instrument screw and remove huge myoma. I submit here that nowadays such myomas mostly we adopt laparoscopic approach because laparoscopic this work is very old and we won many awards on these kind of myomectomies. And this is what nowadays many colleagues send cases who have multiple abortions, recurrent miscarriages, or they want IVF and reimplantation. This is a patient who is after multiple abortion, wants ART, and this is the, you see, polyps, small myoma, cavity distortion. These cases, especially they are sequel of BOH. If multiple DNCs are done, there are adhesions also. This is a hysteroscopic morcellator. So you don't have to use any energy for very small fibroids. It's a good thing. And the IVF colleague to implant the frozen embryo of the patient. So the polyps, small polyps are there, small myomas, take out everything so that she doesn't land up in either implantation failure or BOH. So this is because the vision is so beautiful because there is extra suction device when you use hysteroscopic morcellator. Check for everything, and this is that equipment. So as I said, nowadays fibroids which are even submucosal and bigger than 4-5 centimeters, we feel safer because it is one step, because you can suture nicely, laparoscopic myomectomy. And there are so many patients who conceive with myomas, and we many times we do cesarean myomectomies, but there are many who land up in BOH and infertility. And I will not go into theory, but what I want to emphasize, just this simple video showing when in cases of infertility or BOH you are doing myomectomy, please respect cavity, otherwise she will end up in secondary infertility. So just go again inside the capsule, take all precautions that you don't damage the endometrium, and we will demonstrate in a minute. Every time I remove submucosal myoma, I promise myself I will try my level best not to open the cavity, and once you start trying something, gradually you achieve it. And in a minute, even I didn't know when I used to do open, that endometrium is such a nice entity. Somebody is pushing the dye in the Foley's bulb, and see, this was a submucosal fibroid which had 2/3 submucosal component, and so nicely without opening the cavity it could be removed because of the lovely magnification of the laparoscopic or endoscopy. So this is what, and suture it since the cavity is not open, and the patient goes for next pregnancy after 6 months. So whenever laparoscopic myomectomy is done, take all precautions not to damage the cavity and not to damage the cornu, and that is what is the biggest service for a patient of BOH or infertility to do myomectomy. I can go on and on because myomectomy is a topic so close to my heart, and this is what baseball suturing we promoted for decades, and the use of barb suture. They make this procedure very simple and patient friendly. So the least part of the suture is out, the adhesions are least, and this is in-out baseball suturing, so that the least amount of suture is out, and the patient, since the cavity is not open, patient can go for pregnancy. These are the old videos. So you see, nowadays we mostly morcellate in bags, but now that is also a controversy. And few cases I would like to discuss with you. There are many patients who come to you and you manage their BOH endoscopically, and you wonder if endoscopic facility was not there, how these patients will be managed. One such patient who came to me with she had cesarean for a dead baby because of breech and multiple myoma. So after that, she landed up, after cesarean for a dead baby, patient landed up in total amenorrhea. And once they did her ultrasound, they did ultrasound guided removal of products of conception, they failed. They could not negotiate her os. And patient did not have any periods, and she started having regular monthly pains and collection. So she went to a secondary level facility where some very wise senior said, okay, nobody is able to dilate, then what I will do, I'll put a copper tea so that her symptoms get relieved and she starts her periods. But they could not put in the OPD. She said, okay, after 4 days under GA we will put it. And they inserted IUCD. Patient started having periods by the side of the string. But as she wanted another pregnancy, so after 6 months, they removed her IUCD and she again landed up in amenorrhea. So this was her ultrasound picture, and this was her, see what had happened. There were multiple myomas. When they did cesarean, we just blame colleagues, but see how difficult the situation becomes when there is something posterior. And a common mistake is that the incision of the upper part of incision of cesarean is sutured by mistake to the posterior ridge, the junction of the upper and lower uterine segment. And this had happened. I'll show you the video of the patient. And because of this, when I sent her for the ultrasonography, ultrasonologist just said, Dr. Kriplani, there is a transverse septum in the lower part of uterus. Because if you suture the posterior ridge with the anterior lower incision, patient will have closure of the cavity. So after understanding this, what we decided was lapro and histo. And this is the situation. So when I entered with the scope, and see, I thought I will have to revise the scar totally. So there was a big myoma lying between the rectum and posterior, which might have been the reason that that ridge was bulging, and the obstetrician by mistake sutured it to the posteriorly, and she landed up in hematometra. So we did her myomectomy, and after that we dissected nicely the bladder down to revise and to remove those sutures which were obstructing her. So this is what, always dissect the bladder nicely. Then I went down with hysteroscopy, and now everything under vision. I could negotiate with the help of hysteroscope and drained this hematometra, nicely cut this band, and the patient resumed her periods, and she was relieved of this kind. So endoscopy helped in this. These are again our ways of finding multiple myomas, count them properly. Nowadays we have good MRI facilities available. So painstakingly remove all myomas once you have gone in, because otherwise they will become big. So these are the cases where endoscopy really becomes a big help to manage these kind of BOH patients. Proper understanding, because we have such good imaging nowadays, and this is what, nicely suturing all the myoma beds so that the patient goes for next pregnancy and she has a good scar, good strength. So these are the ways: shoelace sutures, in-out sutures, and we keep trying different kind of suturing, the aim should be that she gets a strong scar. So this was the patient who was managed with lepro-histro approach in a minimally invasive way. Otherwise, she was suffering a lot because of hematometra falling cesarean. We inserted Malicot catheter. We are very fond of. We do a lot of cervicovaginoplasties. So we have learned that these catheters have to be left for long term. Intrauterine adhesions, number of patients come, Cox patients, or if you do repeated curettage and DNCs after abortions, obstetric or gynec, it may lead to intrauterine adhesions. So this is again one of the patients diagnosed with HSG, and it is either sequelae of BOH, multiple DNCs, or they are a reason for BOH. So you have to give her a good cavity. In that process, you have to be very careful that you don't create false passages. I think a procedure, a disease which requires a very good acumen from the hysteroscopic surgeon is grade 4 endometriosis. So these kind of metroplasties practicing in India, you have to do a lot of inflammations. So this is what increasing the capacity of uterus because of this is lateral metroplasty, and then next pregnancy patient logically does not land up in abortion. So this is what hysteroscopic adiolysis to take care of cases of BOH. And one has to be really very nibbling effect. Keep on checking the cavity all round. So the aim is to give a good endometrial cavity where next pregnancy goes near term. So this is what these are bipolar resectoscopes. I think the safety lies not only in the equipment or the instrument and type, it lies with the surgeon. Any energy source can be, properly used, but of course the chances of pulmonary edema are less because you can use it with saline. So this is what after metroplasty, increase capacity, put the patient on estrogen therapy. Now comes cases of BOH. This is a problem. So it may be congenital, it may be acquired. I would just like to go into, so these are the cases where they abort in the midterm after 12 to 14 weeks, and there is a typical history. And nowadays ultrasonologists tell us there is funneling, there is shortening, and number of cases you can save that pregnancy with. And laparoscopic cerclage is not for every patient. I always say it is only for cases where you don't have any length of, this is the uterine artery, so you have to go medial to artery. The secret of success is good dissection. Dissect the bladder, see the lovely uterine artery. So once the enemy is in front of artery, dissect it out. And simple Marcelin tape, you just have to tie this tape at the level of internal os so that the patient does not abort because of incompetent cervix. There are so many do's and don'ts. In between, we were not getting Marcelin tape because Johnson withdrew it. Go medial to the artery and don't make it too tight, don't make it too loose. Once you apply, you will have to do a cesarean for the patient, and don't remove it. Let her obstetric history be complete. And don't, this is tightening the os in cases where McDonald has failed, or there is very short length of cervix, or patient has been subjected to conization. So these are, or there is a very bad tear on the cervix, and this is what, fix the suture, and at least he won't abort in the midterm because of incompetent os. And this is a very simple and nice way of tackling and applying this suture. This is, I always believe this may open up or may lead to abrasion, so erosion. So I always fix this suture, otherwise it is not necessary. And this way the knot will not open on its own, and the suture will stay there only. That is the thought. And then I believe in reperitonization, because practicing in one institution for 30 years, more than 30 years, seeing your patients again and again, I realize that peritonization is the best adhesion prevention. So this is the Simple procedure which may help cases a lot when there is incompetent cervix. I will not go into detail. This is also, this case I always discuss. Nowadays, we all are witnessing so many cesarean scar pregnancies, so many. So I don't know what is wrong in our technique or our understanding or diagnosis is better. Number of patients after cesarean section end up in cesarean scar ectopic. They can be managed hysteroscopic. I can go on and on because I have so much of experience of this problem. I have learned by my own mistakes. So I can take a 1-hour lecture. In fact, I told Ritu, I would like to take this lecture. So hysteroscopically, when it is endogenic, because when it is inside, laparoscopically, when it is outside. And there are so many ways to tackle it, but we have our standardized. If the patient wants, if the patient is BOH, she wants to conceive further, laparoscopic management scores over, because you revise her scar so that in next pregnancy she doesn't end up in scar ectopic. And this is the scar ectopic.
This is the laparoscopic
Again,
view
it is
of cesarean
very
scar
simple. We
ectopic.
have standardized.
Uterus.
You push with the Hulka, so that the secret of success of these cases is you dissect the bladder nicely. Initial cases, I used to listen in lectures that they bleed torrentially. So I used to ligate uterine artery at origin. Gradually, I understood if you are in correct place, your understanding of the anatomy is good. They hardly bleed. They hardly bleed 50. Last 20-25 cases, I don't think I have required even blood, even in very anemic patients. So you have to really, these are the ways to achieve hemostasis, either pitrescine, uterine artery ligation, but with practice and understanding, they really don't bleed. The secret of success is dissect the bladder, scar ectopic, because if you dissect the bladder nicely, and the principle of repair is you excise the scar along with the fetus and then repair the scar. This is just pitocin injection, so that make the procedure bloodless, and give the incision on the previous cesarean where the fetus is tangled. It is fetus is implanted in the musculature, so it cannot. And if you miss the diagnosis later, it may be placenta accreta. So this is what, this is a scar ectopic, where this is a live ectopic sac. We will see in a minute. Dissect the sac completely, the fetus is coming out, and remove the fetus, remove the placenta. Sometimes it moves because it is alive, but since it is in the scar, so it will, there is high risk that it will rupture, leading to very bad BOH and abortion, and torrential hemorrhage may kill her. Excise the margins of the scar and do a DNC if you want your HCG to fall fast. And nice repair after excising the old scar is the secret of success. Now I have so many patients conceiving after excising the scar ectopic. So you have to really learn from your mistakes, from your cases, and this is what managing cesarean scar ectopic pregnancy, so that the next time she doesn't end up in this bed of static ST because of scar ectopic. And there are number of cases of scar ectopic. I think I'll finish off with the time. I will leave a few. And you see, colleagues, whenever in a previous scar you diagnose isthmocele. Isthmocele is a defect in the scar when there is unhealthy healing, and this is very common. See how huge is the isthmocele on, this is the cavity, this is the inner ring, internal os, and you will see in a minute the scar area I will go. So I'm coming down, down, down at the level of where the cesarean section scar. It's a huge pouching, and this pouching may be very thin. So when the pregnancy occurs in this scar ectopic, it ruptures, and the patient lands up in this BOH problem. And this is the outer ring. So one has to map the scar, and we have made our own ways of mapping. This is the MRI showing a big defect, and see how weak is the scar. And these are the very good ways. Put the light with the hysteroscope, it will immediately delineate, because you have to nicely visualize and delineate the scar, excise the scar completely. Otherwise, she may land up in repeat cesarean scar ectopic. So this is what, and see how thin the scar is. I'm just cutting the bladder fold and the uterus is open. So if she had become pregnant without the repair, there was high risk of rupture or again landing up in cesarean scar ectopic. And the secret of success is nicely dissecting and excluding that pouching and then repairing. So this is what is prevent this BOH, and now we are doing so many cesareans, and this is the problem which we are encountering more frequently because isthmosele and then repeat cesarean scars. We always suture in 2 layers, nicely taking care of angles, and this is what we don't, you know, nowadays we have understood. You will see how flimsy. This is a very nice huge pouching of isthmosele in this. Initially we used to call starnish, and you see nothing has been done. Somebody's just, she is a case of previous abortion, secondary infertility, and we are just draining her endometriosis. We will check for the tubal patency and see what will happen. This video will show. So this is doing ovarian cystectomy, taking care of her endometriosis, and then checking for the tubes. Tubes are nice, patent, you can see here. So dye has come, but anteriorly what has happened, she's a case of previous cesarean section. Anteriorly, no cautery has been used, no scissors have been used, and suddenly you see so much of dye coming anteriorly. This was a week. So if she had pregnant, there was a very high chance of rupture later, her landing up in BOH and repeat cesarean scar ectopic. Without any provocation, because scar was so thin and she had huge isthmosele. So all cases of previous cesarean section, one has to be very careful that the scar should be strong enough to carry on with the next pregnancy. Otherwise, she lands up. And this is a very, very nice case. If you miss out scar ectopic, they land up in accreta. And this is a patient in second trimester. She had missed abortion. Repeated D&Cs were done. When she came to me on imaging, nobody was able to remove. So, because the reason you will see in a minute. When I put the hysteroscope, this is what multiple D&Cs in to remove this placenta led to adhesions. It is not a septum, it is looking like a septum, but in a minute you will see it is in the middle of the cavity. These are iatrogenic adhesions, and unless you remove these adhesions hysteroscopically, I don't know, if you don't have a facility for operative hysteroscopy, how you will manage a patient where there are adhesions below the placenta, and in a minute you will see the cavity in front of this band of adhesion. So this is just, and this is the placenta tissue. So in a case of placenta accreta, where there are adhesions below, removed hysteroscopically, went up in the cavity, and you don't have to use cautery, but you have to scoop out all these, as I did, and I was very happy. I have done a very good job, but she came back with total amenorrhea after 2 months, outstation patient, and this was the condition. Again, the placenta was then and there. So this time I thought, let me do it, lapro guidance, complete job. I will not leave any part of placenta. And this was her laparoscopic view, colleagues. Again, these fibroids are a reason, maybe a reason for bad adhesions inside. So in this case, she had mid-trimester abortion, following which multiple D&Cs were done. And this time with lapro guidance under hysteroscopic control, we removed her placenta. This is the cavity. And you will see in a minute when I'm going down and doing it hysteroscopically, you need not put any cautery, because otherwise you will damage her endometrium. This is just scooping out. And I realized that with the help of this scooping, this huge placental tissue will not come out. So I started doing it with my conventional way, with the ovum forceps under laparoscopic guidance. And see my instrument coming there, so close to the serosa, because there was thinning because of the adherent placenta into the wall of the uterus. And this time under laparoscopy guidance, painstakingly, because I was prepared, if there is a perforation, I'll suture it. And this was the lighting and all, so that you do a complete job. Patient restored her periods and she achieved pregnancy after some time. So these are the cases. I have just put up these cases because laparoscopy and hysteroscopy are a big help in managing them successfully. These were the pieces of placenta removed. And another big thing you will see, a patient lands up in abortion, a BOH case, lands up in total amenorrhea, you do her ultrasound or you do MRI, you see either there is Escherman kind of, or this is the picture. The fetal bones are, remaining fetal bones are embedded and they are infertile or BOH. And then we remove, if you remove them, and this is the patient had 16 weeks abortion, see, most probably it is the scapula here. You can even identify bones. So removing all these bones, and there are special instruments which are very, very atraumatic. This is the optical grasper. In a smaller bone case, we put baskets. And the secret of success is don't break the bones, just pull everything out. So you count in your MRI or ultrasound how many echogenicities. With direct vision, you see properly, painstakingly keep washing, and number of bones are removed, and the patient will become pregnant and hopefully go to term without these were the bones removed. So these are some of the cases where endoscopy helped in managing. So RPL is a clinical challenge. It can be effectively managed. Anatomical defects can be effectively managed endoscopically in a minimally invasive way. Thank you very much for your patience here. Hello.
Thank you very much, madam, for such a nice lecture, and it was totally mesmerizing, and learned a lot from your skills and your experience, and it is really encouraging for us, and thanks a lot.